welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a minute since I've come on here, but I've had family staying here in my house, so I haven't had any quiet time to just sit down and film, and I finally have the house to myself today, so I figured it was the perfect time to sit down and finally post something. So I'm currently 30 weeks pregnant, which is insane. Let me give you guys a little belly shot. Yeah, so 30 weeks pregnant. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm in my third trimester and we're finally at the home stretch. So I felt like for the longest time my pregnancy was going so slow, and now I feel like it's going so fast. So yeah, super exciting. So I said that I wanted to film a video exclusively to high risk, specifically to my experience. So I hope that you find this video helpful if you've been trying to find some information out there on YouTube. I know there's not a lot dealing with incompetent cervix and preterm labor, loss, anything within that nature. So I really hope you enjoy this video. So to start off, I've talked about my experience on here. I've shared my history with you with preterm labor, incompetent cervix, pregnancy loss, grieving through pregnancy loss. But for the sake of this video, I am going to repeat a few things that I've mentioned on previous videos before, because I do want to cover everything and I want to make sure that I'm being as detailed as possible. And I can't talk about my current pregnancy without talking about my history and how I've gotten here. So my high risk pregnancy journey started last year. I was around 17 weeks pregnant. I had just turned 17 weeks pregnant when my body went into preterm labor. I was pregnant with my first baby, with my son, which I named Liam. So that's when I learned that my cervix was starting to shorten. Everything leading up until that point had been fine, and then one day I woke up bleeding, and I went to see my doctor. She checked my cervix and she told me that it was shortening. From there, she had scheduled an anatomy scan 2 weeks from that day, and that was pretty much it. So that was on a Friday. I had just turned 17 weeks, I remember. So from there, my cervix was weakening, and it was beginning to dilate, essentially. Now I do want to share something that I've never shared on this video before, actually, that a lot of people don't know, and I'm actually really nervous to share because it's a sensitive topic and it could be a little bit controversial, but I want to be completely transparent and raw. So something that I didn't talk about before, and I'm getting a little shaky talking about it. Again, it's a sensitive topic and I don't like to think about it. But so I had gone to my doctor on a Friday and I had my COVID shot scheduled for that Sunday. My body did not react well to the COVID shot, like at all. I was severely ill. I had a really bad reaction to it. I had a high fever, which everything lasted 24 hours, and then everything kind of went downhill for me like a day after. So I knew already that my body was going into preterm labor because my cervix had been shortening, but I think with the COVID shot, it kind of just intensified everything. That's what I think. But yeah, this is the first and last time that I will mention that. I just, like I said, I want to be transparent and real here and talk about my full experience. So yeah, moving on from that, during that 17-week period, I was experiencing contractions for an entire week. The doctors just kept telling me that there was nothing that they could do for me. Nothing was explained to me. It was really frustrating. My doctor at the time was very dismissive. I just felt very alone and lost, and I didn't really know what was going on. You know, it was my first pregnancy. I felt very uneducated. I wished that I knew then what I know now, because I feel like I've educated myself so much and I'm so knowledgeable on, you know, incompetent cervix and prom, and yeah, it's just my mindset was just so different during that time. So the doctors at the hospital, they just kept giving me medication after medication without really explaining what was wrong with me. None of the medication that was given to me was working. And they were just giving me like one thing after another. Like they would give me, I remember, Tylenol, morphine, antibiotics, indomethacin, all within like a very small time frame, which looking back on now, I don't know, it's crazy to me. They were also giving me invasive cervical checks, like no lie, 2 to 3 times a day while I was there. That's extremely invasive, and it's a lot on the cervix. Like I already had a short cervix at the time that was weakening, and I'm being jabbed 3 times a day with a speculum to check my cervix. Like that's not right. And I later learned that the reason the doctors at the hospital couldn't intervene, and I mean intervene in the sense of controlling my contractions, figuring out a plan to keep my baby safe. They couldn't intervene because my pregnancy was not considered viable. Viability is at 24 weeks. So yeah, to them, my case, it wasn't really important. I wasn't prioritized, and that it's really sad. No woman should have to go through that. It's very sad. So after my water had broken midweek, they told me that I had to be induced because it was only a matter of days that my body would go sepsis. I had no more amniotic fluid for the baby, so I was bound to get an infection, and I would have to deliver the baby ASAP in order to essentially save my life, because it was a life-threatening situation at that point. And I did try, and I mentioned on here, I did try to just deal with it at home. At first, I didn't want to be induced. I wanted to do everything that I could. And at that point, I had done a little bit of research, and I've read, you know, success stories of women that have gone through similar things and their babies making it. But my body couldn't make it. It gave up. I tried the best I could, and ultimately I had to deliver that baby because I was dilating. So he was going to come out either way. So after that experience of losing my son, again, I was very lost. I was in such a weird place because I never heard of someone's water breaking that early. You know, incompetent cervix, none of that. I was very naive, so I didn't know what resources to go to. My doctor at the time, she never once checked in on me at the hospital, even after the medical team contacting her, letting her know what was going on. Mind you, the hospital is within walking distance from her practice. That is just so frustrating to me. It makes me sad. Like, I really didn't have anyone advocating for me. I didn't feel cared for. I just felt like, I don't know, like my situation didn't matter. So she ended up calling me, actually not her office staff, I guess. They called me 2 weeks after everything had happened to schedule a follow-up appointment. They said that it was medically necessary, just to, I guess, make sure that everything in my body was okay. So I went to the appointment, and I've never looked back since. At my appointment, I was a little bit hopeful that I would receive some sort of explanation as far as like why everything went down, why nothing was explained to me properly. I needed like a bit of closure, I guess, because I felt so lost and I was confused. Like I needed someone to walk me through everything. if that makes sense. She basically told me that my pregnancy was a fluke. So yeah, I never went back to that doctor's. I did ask her to give me my medical scans that showed my cervix shortening, also my scan that showed that I had a dermoid cyst, which was detected at my first ultrasound. She didn't have any documentation, which is insane to me. Like, everything was verbal and nothing was written down. None of those scans were recorded. It didn't make any sense to me. Luckily, with the hospital, the discharge paperwork did explain, you know, incompetent cervix. The only thing that wasn't on there was the dermoid cyst. So I needed that paperwork because I was building a chart, you know, for my next doctor. I wanted my next doctor to know my full history. So from there, I just started doing research online right away, and I came across Facebook groups, which was something I wasn't very familiar on before. And I'm so glad I came across them. They've been a huge resource for me. They still are. It was therapy for me. I got to meet women online who had similar experiences, and it helped get me on track for what the next steps are. And everyone told me, you know, the first thing is book an appointment with a maternal fetal medicine doctor who specializes in incompetent cervix and has experience with preventative cerclages, because that's what you're gonna want for if you've experienced this, that's what you're gonna want for your next pregnancy. You want a doctor to come up with a plan and who specialized in that field. So I asked in all of my groups, you know, what is the best doctor in New Jersey that you can recommend? The majority of people recommended my now doctor. So he's highly rated in the state, and he's 30 minutes north from me. So I called the office and I was able to schedule a preconception appointment for mid-May, so about a month after my loss. Now we're at the appointment. Unfortunately, my husband wasn't allowed during that time. This was, you know, with COVID and everything. I had an amazing experience. The front desk team, the ultrasound techs, the nurse, the doctor, I had such a positive experience. As soon as I met the doctor, he was so enthusiastic, so caring, and he really took his time with me. He was like, all right, we're gonna walk through everything, tell me everything. At that point, I had already given him like all my paperwork, so he had a little bit of backstory of what was going on. He was extremely informative, and he explained to me, you know, this is why your body went into preterm labor. He drew diagrams for me, and he gave them to me to give to my husband. He's like, here, I want you to explain everything that I explained to you, show it to your husband. And we created a plan, like right then and there. He told me that for the next pregnancy, I would be closely monitored, and we would do a preventative cerclage. He explained all the different types of cerclages, and we settled on what he calls it's a prophylactic cerclage, which is a preventative cerclage. I think it means the same thing, and it's scheduled at 12 weeks. So that was the plan. I did bring up the dermoid cyst situation, and his first thought was, okay, well, we need to get that checked right away. And he gave me a referral to get like an ultrasound done. So that was scheduled. I was able to schedule an appointment, I think a month out. It took a while to get an appointment. I want to say around July is when I was able to get an appointment. Maybe later. I don't even remember. I remember after that appointment, when I went back into my car, I just bawled because I had, I guess, this like sense of relief almost. I felt so understood, and yeah, it was such a good feeling after going through everything. Finally meeting someone who understood and was caring, and yeah, just all around good vibes. So fast forward to the scan of the dermoid cyst. It was detected. As soon as I got the results, which was I think a day or two. I had called my doctor, my maternal fetal medicine doctor. He went over the results and he told me, okay, we need to get this taken care of right away. So he referred me to a doctor who specializes in that, he's actually really close with. So I scheduled that appointment, and appointment went great. That same day, they scheduled me for surgery. Not that day for surgery, but they had my surgery scheduled that day, which was awesome. And I talked about my whole experience with my dermoid cyst removal and all that, so I'll link that video down below in case you're curious. After I had my laparoscopy, which was the removal of my dermoid cyst, it just felt like a fresh start. The first time I felt excited and hopeful for the future. And the doctor who conducted my surgery, one of my main questions was, okay, how soon can I start trying for a baby? He told me after 2 cycles. So that's exactly what I did. I waited 2 cycles, and thankfully, I'm so grateful that I was able to get pregnant right away. So now I can talk about getting here and what my pregnancy this time around has been like, because it's completely different. I have an amazing team of doctors behind me, and I monitor it very closely. I've been seen every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I have a cervical exam. I'm now 30 weeks. I know I mentioned that already, but I'm now 30 weeks after, and I have another appointment next week at 31 weeks. After that, I'll be seen weekly. So my first ultrasound with this pregnancy was at 8 weeks. It was in December. I had a great appointment. I got to see my baby's heartbeat. Everything was measuring fine. Everything was right on track. The doctor was really happy to see me. He remembered me. He hugged me, I remember, and we were able to schedule my procedure for my preventative cerclage like right then and there. So we scheduled it for mid-January. I was so nervous leading up to the surgery. I was mainly nervous about the spinal tap anesthesia, because, you know, it's one thing to be put to sleep during a surgery, and it's another thing to be numb from the waist down and be awake and experience everything. So that's what I was most scared of, honestly. I just remember feeling so nervous, but everyone in the Facebook groups that I'm part of assured me that that was the least of my worries, that it wasn't a big deal. So up until 12 weeks, I did not leave my house. I was extremely paranoid, and that's just the reality of going through pregnancy after loss. I didn't want to risk anything. I was very, very careful. I just didn't want anything happening to my baby. So I took every precaution that I could, and I just laid low. And yeah. Finally, the day of my procedure, I got there 2 hours before my scheduled time. My scheduled time was at 10 a.m. so I got there at 8 a.m. I remember. And of course there was a little bit of a delay. My doctor had an emergency C-section to attend to. So I did have to wait a while, but not too long. I got to meet with everyone that was going to be with me in the OR, including some of the residents. I met with my anesthesiologist, and he kind of just explained everything to me. He said that the spinal tap would be basically an epidural, but like an intensified version of it. So he was like, if you're able to get through this, like the epidural, when the time comes, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just less intense. So I head to the OR, and I'm sitting on the edge of a table. They tell me to bend down, and they insert the needle in my back. I'm not gonna lie, it did hurt, but only for 2 seconds. So it was fine. And then the next 5 minutes were like intense as far as like the sensation. So my body completely went limp, and it was such a weird feeling. I did not like it at all. I was a little panicky just because it just felt so weird. I just felt like I could move like this part of my body, and that was it. So they propped me on a table. They put my feet up, and Then the doctor got started on the procedure right away. From the time that I was in the OR and out to recovery, it was about 20 minutes. So it was really, really quick. So after that, I headed to recovery, and that next stage was brutal for me. I don't know why, but I had intense cramping. He told me it was normal, but like it didn't feel normal to me. I think the combination of the cramping and my fear of contractions, like that combo, that's what made it feel worse, because I was still traumatized from my last pregnancy, and I just kept thinking to myself, please don't get contractions, please don't get contractions. So they had given me Tylenol, which didn't help, and then they finally gave me Motrin, and finally, like, the cramping was under control. And they told me that once I got my sensation back and was able to go to the bathroom, then I can go home. From speaking to other women in the Facebook groups, everyone told me that, or at least from their experience, that they were at the hospital pretty much all day. That was not the case for me. I felt like everything was very quick. Like I said, I got there at 8 a.m. and around 1 p.m. I was discharged. So I think that was pretty quick. I'm thankful that my sensation came back right away. A lot of the nurses were surprised too, that they're like, are you sure you can walk? Like, you're good? And I was completely fine. I guess my body handles the anesthesia so well. And I've also done it before. I don't know if that makes a difference, you know, with my last surgery. So I don't know. So recovery for me from the cerclage was about 2 weeks, and I had a follow-up appointment with my maternal fetal medicine doctor 1 week after the surgery. So during the appointment, they did a cervical exam and everything looked great. During my appointment, one of the concerns that I brought up to my doctor was contractions. I explained to him my intense fear and how I was very paranoid. I didn't want to go through that again, and that I was scared. So what he recommended was that I start progesterone injections at 16 weeks. So he started me on the brand Makena. It's like an auto injection that you can take either at the doctor's office or at home. Luckily, I'm able to take them from home, so my husband gives me the shots every week. I'm actually going to show you guys what the injection looks like. So this is what it looks like. It comes in a pack of 4, so every month I just refill them, and yeah, it's relatively easy. So I don't know if you can tell, but you see where this one's already used, so you see where that orange line is. So that's where the fluid would be, like the actual medicine, and you would remove this, and the needle is in there. So you just press it against your skin. So they told me to take it like the back of my arm, and I just alternate arms weekly, but you just press into it and wait until it's fully orange. The injection itself is not painful. It's the medication that's extremely painful, but it only lasts about 5 minutes, at least for me. Every single person is different. My nurse told me that the patients that take it in the office, a lot of them have really bad reactions, like bumps and swelling and itching. I am so thankful that I haven't really had any symptoms like that. In the beginning, I did have a little bit of like bruising and itchiness, but that's about it. So it's totally worth it to me. There is a lot of controversy behind Makena. A lot of doctors no longer give it to patients because they say it's ineffective. It was almost taken down by the FDA. I am no medical professional, so, you know, do your own research, but I'm here to tell you that it did work for me. It has worked for me, and it's helped keep my uterus calm. I have not had a single contraction, so I feel like it's helping. So I'm still taking them, and I have to take them until 36 weeks. So at 36 weeks, that will be my last one. So I'm pretty much almost there. Now, from the time that I started taking the shot, so 16 weeks up until 20 weeks, was another period that I took things really easy. And the reason being is because, you know, I lost my son at almost 19 weeks last time around. So leading up to that time period, I was extremely anxious. I was just, I guess, superstitious in a way. I just didn't want to jinx anything. I didn't want to leave my house, to be honest with you. It was a really hard time, that period for me, I will say. And every week that went by, I celebrated with, you know, my husband. Once I hit 20 weeks, and I know this is all mental, but I just felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. My husband and I would create these mini milestones, and every time we completed them, we would celebrate. So the first milestone was the 12-week mark, because that's when I would be getting the cerclage. Then it was 14 weeks, because that's considered the second trimester. Then it was 16 weeks, because that's when I started the injections. Then it was 18 weeks, because that's when we lost our baby last time around. Then 20 weeks. We've built so many milestones. After 20 weeks, I think one of the biggest ones for us was 24 weeks, which is viability. 24 weeks, if anything were to happen, the baby has a higher chance of surviving outside of the womb. It's when doctors can intervene and do everything that they can to save the baby. So that was a really exciting milestone for us. So from 24 weeks up until now, again, I'm 30 weeks, my anxiety has gone down tremendously. And I mean, every week that passes, I just feel better and more excited about everything. I still sometimes worry about going into preterm labor, but going in for bi-weekly cervical checks, that gives me a lot of peace of mind. My cervix is the longest it's ever been, even prior to pregnancy. So just to explain to you guys and give you my numbers, I'm happy to do so. Prior to this pregnancy, my cervix measured at 3.4 centimeters. When I had the scan for that dermoid cyst, I actually asked the tech at the time if she can do a cervical exam, and she wasn't allowed to. I explained my situation to her, and I was like, please, like, I just really need to know where I'm at. And she was really nice, and she was able to measure my cervix. She told me it was around 3.4 centimeters. In my last pregnancy, when my cervix had started to shorten, it was around 2.4, 2.5 centimeters. And it kind of kept going lower and lower as that week progressed. And now my cervix has measured between 4 and 5 centimeters, which I don't know how that's possible. Like, I don't even understand. My nurse is shocked by those numbers. Every time I go in for an exam, she's like, wow, like, that baby's not going anywhere. Now, I did want to briefly mention, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a bit, but at 20 weeks, I did have placenta previa, but it did resolve on its own within 2 weeks. So I didn't have it for that long. So if you don't know, placenta previa is when your placenta is low-lying and it's covering the cervix. So early in pregnancy, it's not a concern because there's still so much time for it to move. It becomes a concern later on in pregnancy, and if it doesn't move, you're required to have a C-section. So now for the fun part, I want to provide you guys with some updates on the baby and what the next steps are leading up to labor. As of now, the baby is in position. 2 weeks ago, it was breech, but I just had my last appointment a few days ago, and baby's head down in position. So that's really good. It's measuring slightly above average. So I do have a little chunky baby. It's definitely over 3 pounds right now. The baby moves a ton, lots of jabs and rolling and punches. It's so weird. It's a cool feeling, but it's really, really weird at the same time. The baby has hair. They told me that at my last ultrasound, which kind of explains all the heartburn that I've been dealing with. What else can I tell you? The baby looks nothing like me. I've had 2 4D ultrasounds, and both times, like, the baby looks spitting image of my husband, so I love that for me. But it's really cute, and you can tell its face is really chunky already, which is crazy. So yeah, I did pass my glucose test with flying colors, and all of my levels as far as my thyroid and iron That all has come out great, which is awesome. Baby is on track and due for August 9th. And I just had my last cervical exam, which is huge. So no more cervical exams. That means that everything is going great, and we're just kind of at the home stretch right now. Last makena shot I mentioned to you guys will be at 36 weeks, and then I'm scheduled to have my cerclage removed at 37 weeks, and then from there it's kind of just waiting on baby to come. My nurse told me that because my cervix is so long, I'm probably gonna make it till 40 weeks, so we'll kind of see. Our nursery is almost set up, and I'll do a mini tour once I feel it's completed. There's still like a couple things that I want to do. I'm still moving things around and adding things here and there, but so far I've got like all the main things like the crib and the dresser. I've got most of the clothes. I've got my baby shower coming up in about a week, so that's really exciting. We have our names picked out, if it's a boy, if it's a girl. We've got our pediatrician lined up. So it kind of seems like I have it together, but to be honest with you, I'm like freaking out. I feel so unprepared. I'm nervous, which I'm sure it's normal for every like first time mom, but I feel like I'm just like overthinking everything. But I'm just gonna go with the flow. That's what I have recently told myself. I'm gonna go with the flow. I'm not gonna over prepare myself, and I'll just take it as it comes. And I feel like everything's gonna come naturally, and I'll figure it out as it comes. I'm trying to be very minimal as far as like things to purchase for the baby. That's just how I am. I wouldn't say I'm a minimalist, but I strive to be. So I want to do the same with the baby, buying the essentials, no extras and stuff like that. So to close up, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. This took a lot of prep and time, so thank you for your patience, because I know I've been saying for like the longest time that I was going to do this. And of course I do plan to continue to post. If you have any ideas of videos that you would like to see, I would love for you to share them below. Just let me know. Then I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.